Welcome to the Pitch Pod. We are the pod duo, and we are here to pitch you on all things nerdy, geeky, dorky, dweeby, and lame. My name is Grant. I am your host today, and I am with Andrew.
Hello.
And Vic. Just kidding. Victor is incapacitated this morning, and unfortunately will not be with us. So, yeah, we're gonna make do. We're gonna be flexible, malleable in this situation. You know, what's the saying? Iron sharpens. That's definitely not the saying.
That's a say.
It's definitely a saying, but it's not the one I'm going for. Basically, we'll survive. We're going to try to do this just a two-man show today. But anyway, we are super excited to pitch you on Lovecraft Country. But first, the news you've all been waiting for.
Yeah. So I got in addition to the Wii U from the first episode, I am the mixed owner of a PlayStation 5.
Nice.
Mixed in that, I'm really glad I got it. The endorphins of opening the box was exactly what 2020 needed. Just not what my wallet needed. And like, I had a working PlayStation 4. It was not all that necessary to buy a PlayStation 5. I try to justify it in that, like, it's a launch. PlayStation 4 is the what I own, so
Right.
I have to make decisions about what I play based on whether or not I think it's gonna play. So games like Control are just totally outside the realm of things I ever thought would work on my PlayStation, so that led into why I wanted to get a PlayStation 5. Also, just it's been a real terrible year, so.
Definitely not been the best year for anything?
Anybody but a tech company, yeah.
Multimedia conglomerates. Yeah. But, you know, I was looking at the PS5, just the next generation of consoles, right? And obviously I know nothing about anything regarding video games, but it seems like the improvements are getting more minuscule from generation to generation. And, I mean, first off, I want to get your opinion on that. And secondly, like, where can we go from here?
Well, yeah. It's gotten more minuscule. It's one of those things where a lot of the debate was, do we need another generation of consoles right now? We kind of did the half step with the PlayStation Pro and Xbox, whatever they did. And, you know, it's here now. It's regardless. It does feel like a better iteration. It's a better launch than like PlayStation 4 did. Mm-hmm. And the PlayStation 5 is more comparable to what a good PC would be right now.
Okay.
Whereas when the PlayStation 4 launched, PCs were still much better.
Gotcha. So it's just a big boy.
Oh, man. It's a big old chonker. I believe is what the kids would refer to it as.
Yeah. Not you, though.
Yeah.
You're not a kid.
I mean, I did have to take an aerial photo of it whenever I was taking one to send to people. So
it is
it's a big old boy.
Yeah. Well, what launch titles did you get?
So as part of what I bought it from some weird second and third hand retailer that was one of those places that looked like it was possibly going to be a scam, like they were just going to take my money and run, because I'd never heard of them, but Ant Online pulled through for me. But their deal is that they sell bundles, and I thought if I bought the expensive bundle, that would increase my chances of actually getting through the website with it, because the PlayStations are selling out in a minute, 90 seconds tops, very quickly. So it was a process, and I got the disced version with Miles Morales Ultimate Edition, which came with a remastered version of Spider-Man 2018, which is a very good game. I liked that game a lot. Pretty sure I 100%ed it. And it also came with Demon's Souls, which I've never played a FromSoft game, and I was mixed opinions on it, but
Demon's Souls is like, that is those games that are just like impossible, right?
Yeah, they're from the creators of Dark Souls, Bloodborne.
There we go. I'm learning. There we go. Hey.
You picking up?
Yeah.
So their whole thing is that they are impossibly hard. And I like a good challenge game. I like something like FTL or Into the Breach. So I'm not unfamiliar with games that you're supposed to learn from. Like that you're supposed to do quick runs in Slay the Spire. Something that you're supposed to learn from each run and take that knowledge with you into the next run through. But for some reason, I played an hour of Demon's Souls one morning and went, no, this is not, for some reason, the action genre version of that loop just wasn't for me. So I took it to GameStop, got grossly undersold on a $70 game that had just come out 2 days ago.
Nice.
And paid more money than I wanted to walk out with Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which I haven't played yet because, A, there hasn't been time. I'm kind of thinking that'll be my Thanksgiving week.
Right, just grind through.
Yeah, but I'm working on Miles right now. I think the first game I played was Bugsnax, obviously. I will take your questions. I'll take your questions.
Game of the year?
No, but it was very good. It was wild. If you have no way to play Bugsnax, I recommend just looking up a movie of people playing Bugsnax. The story is very good. It's very funny. The voice acting's on point.
You could just keep saying Bugsnax and I'd be satisfied.
Bugsnax, yeah. The PlayStation 5 itself has been filled with some bugs, snacks.
Cheeky.
So, yeah. The front port, I think I got one of the ones where the front port that you're supposed to charge the controllers off of, the front USB port, not actually charging your controllers.
Sick.
So I have to use the back port, which does seem to be charging my controllers, so that's good.
Nice.
Been a couple other. I had one hard stop while playing Bugsnax, where the game just went, I'm gonna shit the bed right now. And it just stopped playing. I was like, you want to send a picture of this doo-doo to Sony? And I was like, yes, please. It should see the mess it's made. So that's been the only hard stop I've had. They pushed out a new software update, so hopefully that has solved some of those problems, although still not charging the controller from the front since the software update, I will say. But I've played Bugsnax. I played Miles Morales. I started playing a game called Judge, which is weirdly is like $15 game. And it's a mashup of Judge Dredd and Cyberpunk. And it's a top-down shooter, which it seems neat. It's a 15-hour game, so it feels like something I should have bought on Switch, quite frankly, is where I'm at with it.
$15. Hey, $15, 15 hours. Ain't
no, it's a good return on investment. It just feels like a game I would rather sit in bed playing on my Switch rather than in front of the TV going, I could be swinging through a very photorealistic New York City right now.
Yeah.
And then I got No Man's Sky, which has been a weird game that's I don't know a lot about, but it has a lot of love-hate in the community.
That had some of the most hype around it of any game ever. I remember that. I remember just being beautiful. This was going to be a game changer in the exploration series of games, and then just shit the bed initially.
And then they have spent all the time since that game came out trying to live up to those promises. But from what I've heard, and the updates are all free. Mm-hmm. It's got multiplayer now for some reason.
Okay.
But if you want to get in a world and just explore, that's for you. It's there. And I honestly didn't know really what the game was when I got into it, but it sure is a game I might play some more. It was on sale, so. Yeah,
I think it's a credit to the developers whenever they can realize a mistake was made and an unfinished product was released and then be like, okay, we're going to dedicate the next couple of years to just making this what it was supposed to be in the first place. Instead of just dishing it and then making a new project.
Right, so. Yeah. Take that, Bungie, for what you did with Destiny. I don't know enough about Destiny. I bought an external hard drive for my PlayStation 5 to store the PlayStation 4 games on because
I heard
just not a lot of memory on the PlayStation 4. Destiny itself is 100 gigs, so that's 1/5, 1/6 of everything. I wanted to play those games and see what they look like on next gen because I've never really dealt with it before, but I did not want it taking up my vital PlayStation 5 memory.
Yeah.
I also bought Devil May Cry 5 Remastered, which I've never played a Devil May Cry game. And I honestly did that out of frustration because as part of the move, I couldn't find Spider-Man. Mm. And I was like, well, I couldn't find many of the games because they were packed up, but my PlayStation had been hooked up, and I was like, I want to play a next-gen game, damn it. So I got Devil May Cry 5, and that game was anime. and metal as hell. And
yeah.
I watched, there's a little video on there that says, "Do you need to be caught up on the story?" And I said, "Yes, please." And I got caught up on the story, and I went, I'm going to keep looking for Miles Morales.
Fair. I don't know. You mentioned something earlier, and I think this is just where you and I differ so much, and maybe like just the psychological reasonings of why I don't play games to the degree that y'all do. Mm-hmm. I'm just a sore loser, I think. I think that's just the basis of it all. Like, I have to complete things to the 100%, and when I lose, I get mad very easily, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, you guys are like playing all these games, and you're mentioning like you have to die like a few times to get past the first level, and I'm just like, no, I want to do something and just finish it and be the best at it immediately with no hard work and just immediate gratification. So I was playing Darkest Dungeon because Victor literally paid me to play it. He bought the game for me, and I was kind of excited. I was like, man, I might just actually end up enjoying this kind of stuff. Who knows? I literally gave up after 2 hours. I lost after the first level. I kept losing. And then Victor was like, oh, yeah, no, you have to YouTube it and learn how to play the game. I'm like, no, I just want to play the game. I want to play the game and just win. That's why I like Pokemon. Because, you know, I can just...
There's no losing.
You can't lose. If you lose, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. But that's also why I just like watching movies and shows more. Because all I have to do is just sit and analyze and just look. I don't have to have any sort of interaction. I can just sit there, watch it, complete it, feel that validation of success, and move on to the next thing. So, in preparation for our pitch on Lovecraft Country, I watched a lot of other things instead. I watched Lovecraft, don't get me wrong. We're going to be able to have a good conversation. But, yeah, I did finished a few catalogs and a few potential pitches for later on. You know, I wanted to be able to like watch entire filmographies and stuff like that, or like whole studio productions, and be able to get the whole shindig before I pitch it out. Let's see. What else have I been watching? I'm almost finished with Euphoria on HBO, which is so good.
Is it the one that has Zendaya in it?
It is the one that has Zendaya in it. I mean, okay, this might be a controversial opinion, but it's essentially, and I might be underselling the actual crap out of this because, I mean, Zendaya won an Emmy, but it's like Degrassi on steroids.
I never watched Degrassi, so...
Do you know what Degrassi is? It's like where Drake...
Is it the show that gave me Drake?
Yes, it is the show that gave you Drake, where you got shot.
Sorry, I phrased that poorly for myself. I meant to say inflicted Drake upon me.
No. It gave you the treasure that is Drake. But yeah, basically Degrassi is just high school drama where every episode someone either like gets shot or gets pregnant or gets shot and pregnant. But like imagine that, and then with Euphoria it's like critically acclaimed, you know? Like with good acting and beautiful cinematography, great direction. Zendaya is perfect. It's actually very good show. I'm going to finish it up right after this. And then also almost done with Animaniacs on Hulu, which is exactly what I wanted it to be. I mean, some people are saying it's a little less zany and more reflective.
I mean, I believe zany is in the opening song.
Yeah. I'm just saying, like, it is definitely referential and very referential. So if that's something that you get tired of, then I guess don't watch it. But I don't know. I think it's exactly what I wanted it to be, and exactly like the 1990s cartoon for the modern day. But overall, it's been a whole lot of sitting down, watching shows, completing shows, feeling good about it, and not losing. So, what did you... Nope, don't do that to me. Don't do that to me, Andrew. Don't. Nope, not going to read it. I mean, probably validation. There's probably reality there. But I'm not going to confront this right now. Probably also a little heavy for a podcast.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
I just, you were defending Drake.
I like his music
for you.
You know, Drake probably, for our listeners back home, if this makes it into the edits, Drake did potentially some naughty things, and I'm not going to address it on the show. Drake, he's got hits, man. That's all I'm going to say.
It's fine. I'll have my actual headline for today is one that you can't talk through. So
yeah, no, okay, totally fair. Based off that, let's go ahead and move on to the headline that I will not speak a word on, based off of my own internal conflicts or external conflicts. Andrew, go ahead.
Yeah. So there is a story making the rounds a little bit, but that should blow up a lot more. About Star Wars novelist Alan Dean Foster, who wrote a few books for the Star Wars before the Disney merger, before they bought out Lucasfilm. So those books are still on sale. They're in the Legends collection. I should specify that I am not employed by the Disney company and owe them nothing. So that's why I'm here, being the one speaking truth to power from our little corner. So he says the mouse is stiffing him on the royalties for his books. And Foster has, number one, his wife has been sick. He's now been diagnosed with cancer. And he's not asking for anything not owed to him, except he just wants his money. So he ghost wrote the novelization for Star Wars, which was published as George Lucas. And that was way back in 76. And he's written a few other books for them. And then he wrote for Fox, he wrote the novelization of the Aliens and Alien 3 movies. So I'm not saying Alan Dean Foster is submitting high literary art, but he is a writer doing a job, and his books are still being sold, and he is not getting the royalties from them, he says. And the Science Fiction Writers Association is stepping in to try to help him get his royalties. So there are some hashtags going around of Disney must pay. And it's troubling because Disney's argument essentially is that they inherited the creative properties. They didn't inherit the obligations to pay into perpetuity for the creative properties. Which, you see some of this. Chappelle, whenever he hosted SNL, said, my shows just got put on HBO Max and Netflix. And I didn't see a dime. And presumably that has something to do with with something in his previous contract. But Disney is breaking out all sorts of weird stuff. They tried to get Foster to sign an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, before they would even enter into negotiations. Which kind of looks like they're going, all right, before we screw you over, we want you to sign something that will make sure that you don't tell anyone how we screwed you over. That's conjecture on my part. That's not provable, but it is what it looks like to me. It's a bad situation, and it's potentially very damaging for any creative type, or even contracts in general, if Disney gets away with it. Especially since Disney has its own problems with copyright. Like, they're trying to protect Mickey Mouse. Even though that Mickey Mouse is about to head into public domain, but they're trying really hard to keep it from happening. In fact, Mickey would already be in the public domain if not for a law passed in 98. So, Disney very protective over their own copyright and making sure they get their money, but they don't have a lot of care for for the very small creatives. Hopefully, if you happen to be on the tweeter later, just put out a Disney must pay, maybe. Show them, get something trending. I don't know. Whatever. But I think it's worth knowing that Disney's screwing people over, and I do kind of regret that my Disney Plus already auto-renewed. Because the only thing they care about is their money. And they officially already got mine since they sell a yearly subscription. So maybe they're just going to schedule all their scandals to come around right when that Disney Plus renewal goes through, so they don't have to worry about it. But I'll stop talking about this so that Grant can talk to you about some weeb shit.
Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, I'm just no comment that entire section for reasons. Anyway, so yeah, I'm just gonna take it by the horns.
Don't take it by the mouse ears.
Nope, not gonna do that. In more positive news, I want to talk to y'all about some weeb shit, as Andrew mentioned. Some great weeb shit news, actually. So I want to just reflect on the popularity and success of anime on the Western. What are you? That's how you pronounce it, anime, and that's how real authentics, true fans pronounce it. Anyway, But I want to just kind of congratulate the success of this medium onto the Western demographic. Fun little stats for y'all. There are 167 million Netflix accounts in circulation right now. 100 million of those watched an anime in the past year. That is about 60%. That's huge. Everyone's on the game. Everyone's talking about it, whether it's, smaller, more circulated shows like Beastars or, the big time ones like
Death Note.
Yeah, Death Note, exactly.
That's the anime I watched on Netflix.
Yeah, there we go. Hey, no, I mean, there is something for everyone because for the 100th time, it's a medium, not a genre, right? And hopefully more people will start to recognize that wonderful fact. But in other news, looks like Sony is looking to purchase. This was obviously a few weeks ago, so updates are still kind of up in the air. It looks like Sony is going to buy Crunchyroll in the coming months. They already own Funimation, right, which is the main competitor for Crunchyroll. So with this purchase, I mean, Sony essentially owns anime. But I mentioned the Netflix streaming accounts now because it's become such a integral part of subscriptions, Hulu is trying to release their own new content. HBO Max took all of Studio Ghibli. Amazon had their Amazon strike thing, which was terrible. What's up, Andrew?
Just to clarify, HBO doesn't own Studio.
Right.
They're just hosting it.
Yes, exactly.
Internationally, Netflix has the rights to Studio. That word.
Yes. Ghibli, all of them.
Yeah.
Thank you for the clarification. But, yeah, it's become a very important piece of the streaming service pie. And that's exciting to see. Did you hear the news about the Demon Slayer movie? If you're familiar with that at all, if that's even English to you.
I mean, it's English that I assume was Japanese first.
Yes, Kimetsu no Yaiba is the the Japanese version of it. The Demon Slayer movie released. Kimetsu no Yaiba is a very popular shonen anime that released last year, and now it's the movie came out a few weeks ago now. But in a global pandemic, it is now the third highest grossing movie of all time in Japan, behind Spirited Away and Your Name, which are just icons, and the 8th highest grossing movie internationally of 2020, which lost to some Chinese films because they're ignoring it too, and Bad Boys for Life.
I think Japan has pretty much declared victory over Corona.
There's no case spikes.
They're doing very well, so that's probably why their theaters are back opened up. Perfect time for a new Dragon Ball Z movie to drop.
Ooh,
it's my anime. It's the only anime I recognize.
Do you Wait, did you watch that Dragon Ball Z movie that came to America?
Which one? Oh, no, I don't mean Evolutions.
Oh, yeah.
I mean versus Broly versus whatever. Oh. Yeah, some super movies.
Choli, Moly, Zoli. I didn't watch Dragon Ball. It's too long.
Broly was the correct name.
Yeah. I know. Dragon Ball, it fits under that umbrella of video games because it's so long that I can never complete it. Uh-huh. And then I can't gain that validation from being I watched this entire thing. Check the box off.
Didn't you just read 300 plus episodes of Berserk?
That was only a couple weeks of content. That was an hour and a half a day, a few volumes. Boom, boom, boom.
So you could conceivably read the Dragon Ball manga.
Maybe, but but there's so many things. Well, that was part of the pitch pod, right? That was dedicated to... Would I have read Berserk if Victor didn't pitch it? Probably not. But that's the beauty of our show, ladies and gentlemen. We are introduced to new art forms, ones that we may not have appreciated before, but thanks to our fellow friends at this show and our audience members who recommend us certain forms of content, we can be more diverse as a people and as an enjoyer, as a viewer.
Follow that up with anime as a medium. What are the defining characteristics of the medium?
Well, I think that is a widely contested debate, right? Because there are some that believe it must be Japanese animated content. So it has to be developed, produced studio in Japan. There are those that are in the camp that believe like any of those with those more Eastern influences, like Avatar, who also had a lot of their animation in like Korea, would consider that anime, right? Because of those sort of influences. And then there are those, such as I, who really don't care and more just think of anime as Japanese animation, like the literal translation. And so animation is animation, and animation's also medium, because those are challenges that we are still trying to combat. Is like,
but doesn't your definition you just described fit the first definition you described?
No, as in like the first definition I described is more along the lines of like it has to be in Japan, whereas my definition is more, this is the literal anime is just Japanese for animation. So anything animation, anime.
So The Simpsons are anime?
Tomato. It's animation.
So by your definition, it's anime?
Yeah. I'm gonna stake my claim here. I'm gonna place my foot in the ground. I think
that's placing your foot somewhere else.
Whatever. No, I think that animation and anime are the same thing. I think it's it's like, yeah, it's tomato. It is,
So you would just refer to animation as anime because you're a weeb?
Well, like, just like if it was a, I don't know what the term for animation is in Mexico or in France, right? Uh-huh. But I would refer to it for that form of content, right? So like, I would just refer to it as Hispanic.
Speaking English, you're referring it to it by its Japanese name.
Yes. I am just...
Weep. Yeah.
You know what? Fuck you, Andrew. I don't need this right. I don't need this right now.
We've established our 2-person dynamic.
Yeah. This is okay. Great.
I only wanted to go through that just to make the comparison of anime is basically the bourbon of the cartoon world.
Bourbon.
Yeah.
I hate bourbon though. What's your analogy there? Why bourbon?
Because the part of the definition of bourbon for some people is that it has to be made in Kentucky. Other people it just has to be made with these particular definitions. That's why Jack Daniel's calling itself a bourbon inspires such rage in some people.
Okay.
There's a difference between whiskey and bourbon and scotch and whiskey and bourbon.
Interesting. Okay, so, I can get behind it. Well, what are your thoughts? I want to hear your thoughts on bourbon. As a Kentuckian.
It's got to be from Kentucky. As a Kentuckian. It's weird how the circle on people from Kentucky overlaps people who say bourbon has to be from Kentucky. Almost a perfect circle, really.
Someone would say a Kentucky-sized circle.
Yeah. So yeah, that was the long walk to get to that analogy. So
fair enough. Okay. Well, learning things new every day. Bourbon and anime are 1 and 1. Do you want to talk about, before we head on to the Lovecraft pitch, do you want to talk about the streaming on Christmas Day?
If we're talking specifically about Wonder Woman, I think it's a masterful move on HBO's part, because HBO has had a hard time getting subscribers. Like, they've done well by most metrics, but they're still far behind because they're not on Roku.
Mm-hmm.
I can't download the HBO Max app on my PlayStation. They're still outside of some normal venues that people want to use to watch HBO. I don't think I can download it on my PlayStation. That was the last I heard. I don't think they have a deal with Sony yet. But anyway, I haven't checked in a minute. But so they're limited. So for them to maximize, like, Wonder Woman made $800 million, the first one. The second one looks really good. I watched the trailer again last night, and it looks very good.
Definitely.
Chris Pine is a treasure. And Gal as Wonder Woman is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a great strategy to be like, you could go to the theater and watch it, or you could watch it at home on your HBO Max, which is a much better strategy, I feel like, than Disney, because Disney's strategy was you could watch this on Disney Plus and also give us $30. But HBO Max just wants you to get into the subscription price. And honestly, like we were talking about trying to watch Lovecraft Country if you didn't have HBO Max, was, use some burner email and do a week free trial, even if you only do that for Wonder Woman, like, I think if HBO Max has you're probably going to get a percentage of people who forget to do the free trial, forget to take off the trial.
Mm-hmm.
Like, my fiance's already texted people to let them know that HBO Max is going to be showing Wonder Woman, and people were like, wait, how much is HBO Max? So that's already starting word of mouth.
HBO Max is killing it right now. Honestly.
Yeah, I think it's the thing I've watched most of all the streaming stuff. So, including last night when I wrapped up Lovecraft Country.
Nice. Just for clarification before we move on to the pitch, Soul, which is the movie that is releasing Christmas Day as well on Disney, they have changed their platform, and so this one will not cost additional payment. As long as you have your subscription service, Soul will be released on Christmas Day, free for all Disney Plus subscribers. So hopefully that is a constant, something that becomes a norm if this new way of viewing new movies,
if we remain in a pandemic into 2021.
God, hope not. But yeah, exactly. I don't know how much loss this might create, but yeah, I prefer this method for sure, at least as a viewer, as it seems a little less schemy.
I mean, anybody who's a subscriber is going to prefer this method.
Right, fair.
Which kind of gets into why this makes sense for HBO Max, because they're trying to funnel, like, they want to funnel that in. And Disney too, like, I haven't heard or seen that much about Soul, but it's Pixar, so it's going to get people interested. Not in the same way that Hamilton got people into their ecosystem, but it'll move some numbers, I'm sure. But yeah, I think it's a very good move for Warner and HBO to try to push some traffic to their subscription service, and they need to make a deal with Roku or something. But,
for sure.
But again, I've been doing most of my watching on HBO Max, which is where I finished Lovecraft Country last night.
There it is. Finally, we get to our pitch for today's episode. HBO Max's Lovecraft Country just wrapped up, I guess, maybe a few weeks ago now.
Yeah, I think it was around. I think their final episode was just before Halloween.
Which is what blows my mind, because I watched this when it first premiered, and I was watching week to week with my family, and I didn't realize this show came out in August.
Yep.
And for whatever, that feels like forever ago, but also feels like yesterday, and I'm just very internally conflicted.
I know. Yeah, the Game Awards made their announcements, and Animal Crossing got nominated, and I was just like, that came out this year.
Yeah.
I remember April. It was 84 years ago.
Right. Tiger King.
Yeah. Man. Incidentally, for what it's worth, I think Animal Crossing was not the best game of the year, but it was the game the year needed the most.
No doubt. Yeah.
But anyway, they'll probably give it to The Last of Us Part 2. But Hades should win best game. Anywho, actually getting into Lovecraft Country. This is a show I've been excited about. I read the book, I think, around 2015, 2016. I just randomly picked it up from the local library. It was on display there, and I just picked it up because I read. And
nice. Intellectual.
Yeah, I was going through like a horror thing at the time, so I picked it up and was reading it, and it was about this family of African Americans going through and visiting Lovecraft Country in Ardham, Massachusetts, and dealing with some racism along the way, but also here are these horrors. And I was like, cool. And then I looked on the back cover, and it was it's a novel by Matt Ruff, and I'm like, that guy looks very white.
Yeah.
And
spoiler alert, he is.
He is the most white. And that made me think of the novel in a very conflicted way, because I couldn't read it anymore knowing, and it was I felt off-putting anyway, which is why I ended up going to the back cover to look at the author, and it was just weird. So the whole I think having diverse perspectives in your story is good. I think having people of color in your story is good. But this was a conscious choice by a white writer to create a predominantly black main cast.
Mm-hmm.
And he's trying to write about Jim Crow racism through their perspective and the fear that they experience. Yeah. And I'm like, I don't believe you. Anything you're telling me. I don't believe your authorial point of view. I don't believe this, which I read, and, like, plot-wise, I think it carries through. Like, the book was interesting, the characters were interesting, but something about just reading the narrative was unsettling to me. Also, it should be pointed out, unfortunately, even if Victor were here, like, me and Grant are two very white guys. And if Victor were here, we'd be two very white guys and a Hispanic guy.
Definitely not authorities on this domain.
So not, like... The fact, and I would say the fact that I was uncomfortable is probably a good thing, but it did not feel like something Matt Ruff needed story to tell.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why I got to the end and I was reading some paperbacks will do postscript type things where they do an interview with the author, and they mentioned immediately, or maybe this was on the back cover, that it had just got optioned by Jordan Peele and J.J. Abrams to do an HBO show. And I said, and this was around the time when Get Out had just kicked off,
right,
maybe a year after. And I said, okay, as unhappy as I have been with the book,
mm-hmm,
maybe I think I would feel much better with this in the hands of a black creator. Like, I would love to see what a person of color could do with this material.
Right.
And the show did not disappoint in that regard. It should be pointed out that Misha Green, who is the other executive producer, but is never the one who is, like, whenever people talk about it, it's like, oh, it's Peele and Abrams,
mm-hmm,
because they're the names, and then Misha Green is the one who got shit done.
She is the showrunner.
Yeah, she's the showrunner. She's the director on a bunch of the episodes. I think the writer on a bunch of the episodes. She is probably the reason why Letitia is such a great character in the show. And in fact, why the women are so strong in the show in general.
Mm-hmm, definitely.
Because it wasn't that way in the books. As part of the pitch, I started listening to the audiobook again. But it's one of those things where I got through the first chapter, and the first chapter is the same as the first two episodes, essentially, in that they go to Artem and they burn it down.
Mm-hmm.
It's night and day, the comparison. It's between the two. Like, all of the constraints I felt in the book, that scene with the officer on the guy's bumper, which I think was probably the best 90 seconds of television this year, maybe.
Oh, it's definitely up there.
That scene alone should get all the awards. As much as I love Watchmen, which is also wild to think that Watchmen wrapped up this year, I think. But it's one of those things, it felt like it had gotten into the best hands for it. To his credit, Matt Ruff did talk about, somebody called him out on his blog of, oh, it would have been great if a person of color had dealt with this. And he goes, well, if you would like to read horror by people of color, here is an author you could look at. He also got nominated
mm-hmm,
for an award. And it was like, yeah, but he doesn't have an HBO show
mm-hmm,
coming his way. Or the initial perspective was, well, it would have been great if he hadn't had your book overshadowing his book. And the response was just like, well, it's not a pie. We're not competing over space, which you want to believe, but in fact, that guy didn't get an HBO show.
No.
Like, that guy is getting a shout out on a blog that a dozen people are reading.
Right.
I did download a book by that guy. I've got a list of black horror writers that we can put in the show notes, but that particular one that I looked up was The Ballad of Fat Black Tom by Victor Lavelle, which is a novella, and I've not gotten into it yet, but I'll break into some of this stuff. Cool. But anyway, that was one of the reasons I wanted to bring Lovecraft Country to the table, was just because I thought we were doing a lot of stuff.
Right.
I thought it was a different look, and I thought it was good to try out stuff that maybe challenges normal perspectives.
For sure. I like what you mentioned on the perspective of, like, Misha Green and what she brought to the table. One of the things I really liked about the show was, like, the really strong, independent, woman characters, and how, I mean, obviously I didn't get to read the book. Andrew mentioned there was a short read, and I thought short read would be like a couple hundred. It was like 400 pages, and that's just outside my realm of short. But from what I can gather, they gender swapped a few of the characters, right? So yep. Diana, who plays Hippolyta and George's daughter, right? Mm-hmm. And so was Christina Braithwaite, who is the primary antagonist, I would essentially, of the series.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like the system was the antagonist for 8 of the episodes, and then in the last 2 it was Christina, which I felt a little betrayed by.
Yeah,
but we'll get into that. I thought it was a lot of solid character work, and nearly every change they made from the book was good, including them looping in the book Lovecraft Country, and talking about the changes and giving that meta thing of like there are like parallel worlds and whatnot, and it's worth pointing out spoilers ahead.
So definitely. Yes.
Yeah, like if you weren't gonna know. And I only bring it up specifically because the show just finished a few weeks ago. So the show was interesting in that there were a lot of times when I went, well, that was very convenient for the plot. The first time I did that was even like episode 1 or 2, and George made some kind of comment on, well, they'll usually find something in the woods at about this point, and then something immediately happens. And I was a little like, all right, this is going to be one of those shows. But then they just kind of leaned into it so hard that I feel like it was just genre fiction, like in the way that Atticus is obsessed with pulp novels. Pulp novels are all about convenient plot points and stilted dialogue, and the reason you read a pulp novel like you would read, the reason something like Raymond Chandler's Philip Marlowe character would work is because that character is so strong. And I thought the character work in Lovecraft Country was great throughout. And I didn't know if you saw any particular elements of genre that you wanted to call out or how that played for you. Because, like, purposefully representing something that's bad writing, quote unquote, as your show, it could go poorly for the viewer.
Yeah. And I think what is critical, well, maybe not necessarily critical, if you have a very open perspective, then you can watch anything, right? But I think it is definitely important to realize that the name of Lovecraft is slightly misleading in the sense that there are Lovecraftian, like that horror elements in the first episode or 2, but after that is definitely, it borrows from many different other genres, right? So if you come in expecting these celestial Cthulhu-esque horror that was in the first 4 minutes of episode 1, you will be disappointed inherently, right? There's still a great show, but I think that's important to note first and foremost. I did really enjoy the anthology-esque-ness of the series. I thought it was fun to kind of go from point to point to point, obviously, with anthology, you thus struggle to connect the plot together. And so at points, the show definitely went out there. And by the end, it was kind of just like a what is happening. Not necessarily in a terrible way. And I think it definitely leads to a second season. But for sure, like you definitely sacrifice a togetherness per se. Whenever you have one episode dedicated to a nine-tailed fox and then immediately go on to Topsy and Bopsy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, absolutely. That makes... Yeah, in the fox episode, number 1, I loved it as a standalone. But then when she shows up at the beginning of the next episode, I'm like, what's happening?
Exactly.
Why are you here? And then she doesn't appear again until the last episode.
Conveniently, right.
Conveniently, and then has a major part to play, which again goes into, that is some genre fiction stuff, but it's not satisfying at that point. It's worth pointing out that I have no idea truly what happens in the last 5 minutes of the show.
What?
Aside from the very clear...
Oh, like you literally, like you watched it and you didn't understand it, or you just...
Right, like I don't know why what happened necessarily happened.
All right. Well, you can definitely elaborate because we've already spoiled the shit out of this. So
right. Well, I've got a specific. I'll talk about the end at the end. I think.
Okay.
In terms of like the plot making sense, I'm just like the culmination is I'm not sure what happened or why it happened.
Right.
But I do like that the anthology thing was very good. Episode 3 or 4 was basically an Indiana Jones episode
in the museum.
Yeah, that was very cool. But I loved, and this was something that was particularly shows, I think, the strength of the show versus the book. The book, the horror, like the cosmic horror, the ghosts, all of this was the central element. Right. I often did not get the feeling that that was the central element of the show. That was the window dressing. The real horror of the show was racism and the reality of what these people what this family goes through in their everyday lives. Mm-hmm. And then it just happened to be, the people who hate them also can use magic.
Yeah.
Whereas in the book, and this, in the haunted house episode where Lady gets a house, the ghost that's haunting her house, in the book, the ghost just kind of makes an alliance with her. They realize they both like chess, and then they settle down. And the ghost helps her out and protects the house.
Well, Casper action.
From white people breaking in. And in the show, they're like, that's not how racism works. We have to get this racist asshole out of this house. Mm-hmm. And then they exorcise him. So that felt much truer to the reality, the horror reality. I love to, it was this weird, almost like the show isn't intended for classrooms, where they would play spoken word parts from, like, I think James Baldwin was in there. Gil Scott-Heron, I think, one of his spoken word poems is in there. And they just kind of play that over images. And it's using its own fiction as to be an honor for people who have died. And this was, like, the Tulsa episode, where Montrose is watching as the planes are bombing, and he just starts listing people who were brutally murdered during the Tulsa massacre. And those were real people and real events. And so it's using fiction as an honorific. So I think the show was trying to do so much and be so much. Don't get me wrong, you can never see it in a classroom. Or if you do, you're definitely getting some
a cool
some
teacher.
permission slips. Yeah. Some permission slips signed. But like it's like adult edutainment almost.
No doubt. At least my Florida and Texas education, very Southern education. Andrew, you're from Kentucky, so also Southern. So we probably had the same type of education, right? I didn't know about a lot of this stuff. I learned, like, this was educational for me through and through. I didn't know about the Tulsa Massacre of 1921. That wasn't taught growing up. I mean, I knew the name of Emmett Till, but growing up, but it wasn't until after I got my degree that you learn some of these kind of realities of history, right? Public school social studies, probably even worse, private school social studies, because that's their own curriculum. Yep. They don't teach you a lot of the ugly nasties that existed not too long ago. And I say not too long ago because I think we definitely think of history as this expansive, like, oh my God, 50 years ago was forever. When in reality, I mean...
That's your grandparents.
My dad's 53.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, no, not long at all.
Yeah, and I think it's important. I didn't know Tulsa Massacre until, I saw it on Watchmen, and there were all these comments. It was like, is HBO just going to do a Tulsa documentary? Or is Lovecraft Country the prequel to The Watchmen?
Ooh. HBO Cinematic Universe.
Yeah, no, we're at the start of the HBO Cinematics, right? But I appreciate being challenged in my fiction, I think, is what I'm looking for. And it's this weird thing, my mom could watch this, but she won't get it. Or maybe she will. I don't know. It's an interesting thing to figure out. She watched Watchmen, but did not take away a lot of the messages from it.
Yeah.
And I thought that the characters, like we talked about Letty, Atticus, Montrose, some of the characters were so complex, and honestly maybe too complex for, like, the moment it was like, oh, Montrose is also gay.
Yep.
I was like, I feel like we might be biting off more than we can chew if we are going, like, we're doing an in-depth study of racism, but now we're also going to do an in-depth study of racism and homophobia within the black community
in 10 episodes.
Right. I'm like, maybe I don't know if we're doing too much, but we're definitely, I'm sure for somebody that was great to see.
Yeah.
And it's only my narrative brain that's going, what are we doing with how much time we have.
I think the issue with Montrose, I'm sorry if I cut you off. Like, my only issue, like, it's not the way it was presented. It was, like, how quick it happened and how all of a sudden it happened that it made it almost his character to be a homosexual. And that slightly put me off. And also, Montrose is the one character who I regretfully didn't like. Not because of Michael K. Williams. He is a godsend and is like an HBO legend. But because, I mean, he ruined everything, right? He killed the Two-Face. He is the reason that Topsy and Bopsy got Diana. He almost ruined, I mean, not necessarily the full reason, but he held her, and then Topsy and Bopsy got her.
Is that their official name?
Topsy and Bopsy. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It's kind of cute, but except it's terrifying.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, in the flashback, I mean, he obviously, time and fate is a whole conversation to be had there, but he almost just ditched his maybe son, maybe nephew, and really everyone back in his original timeline for his potential lover 30 years ago, you know?
Yeah.
So it's there's obvious cases to be made of, like, traumatic moments and the actual decisions and all that jazz. But I felt like his character kept putting him in compromising situations and making it seem like it was going to be the wrong choice.
Right. I mean, I guess he was the only one who knew his way around Tulsa in 21. But the moment they were like, we're taking Montrose, I was like, oh, that's a bad idea.
Nope, don't do that.
Big buckets of nope there. I don't know. I feel like Montrose's overall character is that Montrose is Atticus's father. And ideally that is what any father's overall character would be.
Yeah.
But then you also have Atticus as an adult. Montrose can now live his life as he has never been able to. He's such a sad...
Very.
And I mean, he's an alcoholic.
Yeah.
And which is the other reason why I'm like, taking him is a bad idea.
Drunk time travel is probably not a good idea.
But yeah, unless you're in the hot tub time machine, that's... Yeah, I think Montrose is just such a sad character, and Michael K. Williams did such work for that. I don't know if he got an Emmy for Omar, but he deserves all of them, but also one for this. But honestly, the character dynamic I was most interested in was Christina / William and Ruby.
Oh yeah, stole the show all the times.
I thought that they were so complex, and I thought the relationship was so interesting for so long. And that's why at the end, because I feel like Christina, like the thing I wanted most for those two people was for them to love each other in their own bodies. And then in the last episode they do. And I thought that it was a moment of, it's maybe the only time I can think of where they were creatively cowards by not showing that sex scene. Like, they make sure to show a bunch of others, but they don't show the one against, like, the larger woman. Like, that probably never been on premium TV. Like, that body dynamic. And I think that, you know, I'm all for fewer sex scenes. I think we should be less exploitative of, like, women's bodies in particular. But the fact that they showed so much, and they showed Ruby and William do it, like, in a sex scene. I thought if they had already ripped the Band-Aid off of doing that, it would have been a great moment for body positivity if they had just jumped in there.
I mean, the show is gruesome and very, very expletive and everything, and deserves its R rating through and through and through, or whatever the TV equivalent to R is.
TVMA.
Yeah, it's explicit as all get out, right? And I don't think it's asking a lot to do a switch there, or it's not going to make the series. I mean, literally that whole stiletto scene, right? I mean, you're gonna have that, and then you can't. Yeah, I totally get what you're saying.
I just think from a body positivity perspective,
for sure,
like, it would have been very good to show that, because
definitely,
like, you know, both, like, they're both beautiful women, and I think it's worth showing that women are beautiful regardless of their bodies.
Do you want to talk about, because this is my one conflict of the show, right?
Okay.
And I really want to get your perspective. As a white man, right, I obviously have a perspective that doesn't, like, this show wasn't directly meant for me. But, and I don't necessarily mind the antagonistic forces of, like, every white character being an antagonist, right? I didn't mind, but I think that at times, particularly with some of those cops, that I don't know if it was the delivery of the dialogue or if it was played to a certain effect on purpose, but it put me out how chaotically evil it was. Does that make sense?
Maybe let me check my wire-themed chaotic evil.
Oh, you got a whole chart.
Yeah, chaotic evil. You want it to be one way, but it's the other. I don't think you got two.
Well, so like in episode 1, right? You have the officer who tells, the gang, "Do you guys know what a sundown town is?" And that felt real, and I was scared, and I was like, that is, like, I felt it all, right? But then there are times where, for example, when what was Ruby going by when she like, what was her transformation character's name? Do you remember?
She was playing Dell from her body was of Dell from the. Yeah.
So the Ruby Dell transformation, when she was walking down and she bumps into the African American boy, and the cops are like, "Did you rape her?"
Mm-hmm. Oh,
and it all was delivered, and there was one or two more times where it was enunciated in such a almost cartoony manner that I thought the effect, I wasn't sure if there was another intention behind it or if it was just poor delivery on the actor's part. Not that it didn't take me out of the show by any means, but I think it's definitely worth addressing.
I don't think that's too big when you consider that a black person, maybe that was what got Emmett killed. Like, there was a famous example around this time of a black boy got killed because they thought that he was flirting with a white woman. Mm-hmm. And he was beaten and hung and all this stuff. So, so no, that doesn't strike me as unrealistic at all. Because that was the thing they'd kill you for.
I think, and it wasn't, I don't think it was the accusation. I think it was, that's why I'm thinking it was just delivery.
Okay.
But I don't know if the delivery was intentional or, like I said, it could just be my own perspective and just the way I took it incorrectly.
Sure.
But I don't know. I think that's just a gripe that I thought I wanted to lay out there because I don't think I'm doing the show justice without a great show justice without addressing my questions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it didn't strike me any kind of way, except that was something that could happen.
Yeah.
Where the show fell apart for me, I thought Christina legitimately cared about Ruby. Like, I could think of no other reason for Christina to subject herself to literally going through using her magic and getting put through the Emmett Till treatment. Like, beaten, barbed wire, surrounded by the neck, shot, and thrown into the river. Because Ruby had just challenged her on how unfeeling she was. Don't get me wrong, I have no way to read the ending of that, because I think she just comes up and starts laughing. Mm-hmm. But all the other stuff in the character and their interactions made me think that Christina legitimately cared about Ruby. So the fact that the show ends with Christina saying that Ruby died off screen, and that Christina killed her, and that she died off screen to Letty at the end in the tower, and that at the end Christina was like, nothing is personal. We get to the end, and Christina is the fudging bride in white drinking blood and is every, like, villain fantasy from one of these things with a gigantic sword. And in fact, like, we've spent so much time with racism as the villain that we've now settled on our last 2 episodes or even the last episode with Christina as she's lost all her complexity and she's just the bad guy.
Yeah. I mean, well, I think first off, I'm nearly positive that Ruby is not dead.
Yes, I am sure of that as well. In the Fox memory sync thing, they show her putting Ruby into bed. So she put her into whatever coma type thing that she does to get blood, and then she did that to get. So I don't think Ruby is dead, and I feel like in the book they had a more and maybe I'm just being messed up by the book, because I think in the book they were an item for real, but I could be wrong about that.
I struggle with it. I struggle with that answer because, like, I still think that in a weird way, that Christina still does love Ruby, right?
Right.
But I think the show. So I guess spoilers for the ending, right? And obviously, I think there's a point that you want. Is that the point that you wanted to talk about the ending, Andrew? Or
yes, yeah.
Okay, gotcha. It wasn't really an ending. Right? It felt like almost episode 10 of 11, where there would be a potential, like, additional climactic conclusion at the end. Because in the end, Thicc dies. Ruby is incapacitated, seemingly dead. Diana just goes to town on Christina, right? But obviously, like, every single indication, particularly with, like, a lot of the cross, Jesus on the cross metaphors, and Christianity allegories, right? Every indication leads towards everyone's coming back in some sort of fashion. Maybe not Christina. I'm not sure. But, like, that, I think, is the overall issue, is, like, when you expect a second season. Obviously, I think the show is so popular that it's going to get one, but, like, you impact the singularity of that season because it doesn't finish, right? And I don't think the show finished. Because as itself, it's just, like, I mean, it's kind of a depressing ending.
Yeah.
But not that a series needs to end with just all hunky-dory. But the show didn't end. And so, like, those feelings that you have with Christina and Ruby, I don't think are a completed arc, per se.
Okay. I will point out the fandom for Lovecraft Country ends with Ruby tries to steal a vial of her blood, but Christina catches and kills her. And that's how Ruby's biography ends on the fandom wiki. Not, I mean, I presume they're working with the same info that we are, but,
right.
Whatever. Anyway, yes, I think you're right. There is some room. Season 2 is not confirmed yet, but...
barring an HBO collapse, I think it's kind of an expectation.
Sure. There's a lot of room to cover, like, now that they don't have the source material, they've covered the stuff from the book. Also, right. I think I was wrong about Ruby and Caleb, which was the Christina analog in the book, having any kind of lasting thing. So, anyway, that was part of my thing. I was just like, we've developed, like, we went so long without a true primary antagonist other than racism. And Christina herself was, I don't know if this was a conversation on white feminism not helping black feminism. There's room for that, but I'm not qualified to say. But Christina talking about her own problems in society and not being able to fit into her father's world, and the elitists there. But that's just a stray thought. I don't have anywhere to go with it. Again, I don't feel qualified to take it anywhere, but... Right.
I think that's TLDR. Yeah.
Yeah. It was such a complex characters, and that I felt bad that one of, like, that complex relationship got knotted off that way, off screen, with nothing really at the culmination. Like, the last thing you saw was them, like, presumably culminating, actually being together in their own bodies, and then you get a side comment that, oh, I killed her.
Yeah.
And that's according to the wiki, where it didn't, like, where that relationship was tied off. Now, more to the point of like the last 5 minutes and me having no idea what went on. I don't know what Tick drank.
Yeah.
I don't know if he knew he was going to die, or if like his little letter was a just in case I do die.
Yeah.
I don't know how Letty got her invulnerability back. Although I think that it was
probably Ruby's
Christina.
I think Christina gave it back, and like as like a barter with Ruby,
because she did promise Ruby that she would not kill Letty.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think at the end of the day, it's just all there are so many questions that are just completely unresolved, and that is it's hard to like be okay with that when there is no confirmation of a continuation.
And I guess I was also a little put out that Dee murdered a trapped person with a robot arm. But I was also assured that that was just why I wouldn't survive a zombie apocalypse.
Yeah.
I'm not clear if... I know that Christina has been cut off from all magic, but I don't know if that applies to all magic as it exists currently. Like, I presume they threw that rubble on her in order to trap her. So I don't know if her neck's gonna reform from that crushing, but...
Is she still immortal?
That was my question. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I know she's cut off from future magic.
Right, but is she still the current?
Right. Yeah. I don't know if she's still got her Mark of Cain on her to protect her. Which is what it's called in the book. I don't know that they call it anything in the show.
I think it is the same. But yeah. No, I think it's all just speculative, which is annoying.
It's fun.
It's fun and annoying and terrible and amazing, right?
Yeah. It's annoying until you don't have answers.
Exactly.
But overall, I would say, Grant, I'll let you get the last word. I've spoken so much, and I think we have the general same feeling on it.
No, I definitely want to like just move back to the positive realm, of like what the series does so many great things. And honestly, it was better on a second watch than my first watch, because when I watched it consecutively, it was easier for me to, when you have these long series, it's definitely hard to remember things that happen, because our brains are at least my brain is so tiny that I can't remember things.
Right.
So it was definitely better on the second run when I could actually piece together things. But the show does so many great things. It teaches a lesson, which is always important. The 1950s set pieces were incredible. I thought it captured that time period so well. Music on point. I really wanted to shout out the people that were in charge of the music production. Laura Cartman and Raphael Sadiq. I mean, it was on point 24/7, right? I think it's a great show. One that poses a lot of questions. Obviously, flaws are in every show, and we talk about those flaws because we have to, But yeah, definitely worth the watch if you can stomach the explicitness.
Yeah, I guess I would like I said, I waited on this and followed this show's development for 4 years and did not feel disappointed.
Yeah.
So, that's a pretty good testament, I think. And we've got... I put in a link to somebody's list of 20 great horror books by Black authors. Some of the stuff I already have. I know some of the people are in here that I've heard of. I didn't know Beloved was a horror novel, but Toni Morrison's in here. What's her? Octavia Butler, who I have a couple books by, is in here for her vampire book, which I may never read, but somehow accidentally downloaded. I don't. Just as a reminder, I hate vampires. Don't do them. But so Octavia Butler is a big name in science fiction as well. So worth looking into, just diversifying the bookshelf.
Definitely. And just I think it's important for all of us to be able to expand our understanding of different outlets of creativity, ways people think, and how their perspectives bring out a particular idea. But speaking of vampires, I'm only 95% sure that Victor's pitch doesn't have vampires, because it is very horror, it is very celestial. I am not 100% sure. We definitely have to follow up with Victor. So thank you guys for watching this episode where we talked about Lovecraft Country. What was that?
Listening.
Oh. Listening. Yes. Not watching, not viewing. Audio podcast. But thank you all for listening, right? We are going to do some magical, wonderful edits because, like I mentioned, Victor is not here. So Victor is going to singularly pitch his next episode, or our next episode, Junji Ito's Uzumaki, and enjoy. I don't know what the transition's going to sound like. This might actually just be the transition and then just like...
Hello, ladies, gentlemen, and everyone else in that Technicolor rainbow in between. It's Victor from the Pitch Podcast, or 3P, trademark pending. Don't tell Grant. I apologize for not being able to join in this last pitch, but thanks to the advent of modern technology, I'm able to throw a pitch from the future. Future. I'm sure Grant will add the reverb in post. In any case, it's about this remote little village in Japan, known as Kurozu-cho, and I would like to share with you the strange events that took place there. It's Junji Ito's Uzumaki. Its anime adaptation was announced roughly a year ago, BCOVID, and ever since seeing Toonami's twisted teaser, I've been meaning to meander through the manga about a sleepy town's swirling descent into a supernatural spiral of lunacy. So please, join us in our obsession over the spiral.
All right, friends. Well, that was Victor's pitch for Junji Ito's Uzumaki. Hopefully that we are pronouncing that the same. I am not sure. But I want to say thank you all again for listening to episode 10 of the Pitch Pod. We have come such a long way. I feel like we've been doing this for ages. Actually, it's kind of weird, but it's only been 10 episodes. Time is a construct. Thank you all. Make sure to follow this podcast. Spread the word. Follow us on social media, and make sure to spam us on all your questions, thoughts, criticisms, hate mail, particularly love mail. I've been getting so much love mail in my Instagram DMs lately. It's been fantastic. Continue to spread the love. Get social media, Andrew, and maybe you'll get some love mail too. I don't know. Anyway, make sure to follow us on some of those social media platforms. Instagram, the Pitch Pod, Twitter, @pod_pitch. Most importantly, leave a review. Tell a friend to also leave their review. This is like huge for us. D-Man, amongst others, thank you for leaving us reviews so far. It really helps us in those algorithms. But regardless, tell a friend. You know which friend to tell. Tell that friend.
No, not that friend.
No. The other one. Make sure to interact with us by wasting your next couple weeks obsessing over Junji Ito's Uzumaki. I love you all. Cue Space Rock. All right. I need to pee so bad, Andrew. We can debrief later.
All right.
I thought this one kind of well. Have a good one.